Good morning. My name is John Driscoll. My voice may sound a little weak this morning because I had open heart surgery about 2 weeks ago, but I'm feeling great. And I have to say that the people that do that kind of work really are gifted. I'm not just talking the surgeons, but the surgical technicians, the nurses, the lab people. They're really good at what they do. We're fortunate in Montana to have people that can do that. And feel like I'm in good hands. Anyhow, today's the first day I can get off and do things that I like doing for 5 minutes at a time and go for walks and stuff. But first thing I'd like to do is tell you that my grandson, my oldest grandson of 6 grandkids, Connor, came by to see me yesterday. I hadn't seen him for 6 years, and he and I get along great, but he's got his own life. He's a big guy, he's about 6'4", and he's got a beard and wears his baseball hat, and he works in construction. Doesn't say 2 words. And if I had a nickname for him, it would be Lurch. But we've done some stuff together. We went into the Vatican. I wanted to go see the Vatican secret archives about 6 years ago. So we were over there, and I tried to get him in with me, and the guy that was checking my credentials said, "Who's that?" And I said, "That's my research assistant." My research assistant. The guy said, "Nah." So while I was in the secret archives at the Vatican, Connor was circling around outside on his bicycle. He talked me into both of us riding around Rome on bicycles. That was quite a white-knuckled experience, but a lot of fun. Going down the Tiber River at night, going like a bat out of hell on bicycles. Yeah, that was good fun. But anyhow, he came by to see me, and I was reminded of something that he and I did together. I thought it's worth sharing. I've told you the story about Anton Sigray, Tony Sigray, Marcus Daly and Margaret Daly's son-in-law, who married their daughter Harriet, or Hattie Sigray. So Tony and Hattie Sigray, they had set up their life in Hungary, in the Sigray estate, which is about a 10,000 acre estate. And I told you last week about how they, over the years, Tony became kind of loyal opposition inside Hungary and made a speech calling for peace and separating from the Germans under Hitler. A lot of Hungarians were in the German armies. A lot of them got killed. But anyhow, Hitler didn't take kindly to it. And the same day that Hitler sent 2 divisions into Budapest, he sent the Gestapo knocking on Tony and Harriet's house, and they arrested Tony, who's a pretty active Catholic and conservative guy. He had been a royalist, but he was the conservative opposition to the Nazis, and he got thrown in Mauthausen concentration camp. And I told you about how when he was debriefed when he was let out of the camp by the 11th U.S. Armor Division, the few words that he had to say about what he saw were actually used in the main Nuremberg trials to convict Hitler's regime of crimes against humanity. Not a small thing. But anyhow, the reason I wanted to talk to you about my grandson is we decided 6 years ago while we were in Europe, we were going to go over and see. We went to Budapest and saw where Tony and Hattie's house was up on Castle Hill. It's got a plaque on the wall explaining that the Gestapo had come and seized Tony and what had happened to him. And we got a good feel for the city, and all the terrible things that happened there with the Jewish people being taken away in that last year of the war to concentration camps. But anyhow, we went on down to Ivank. We drove southwest quite some time till we got almost to the Austrian border. And there's this little town of Ivank, and it's basically the old holdings of the Sigrays. And it's where Hattie set up her life with her husband back in 1910, and then by 1914, he'd gone off to the First World War. But anyhow, so I wanted to go there, so just to tell people back in Hamilton what it was like, because the Daly family in both Hamilton and Butte was a big thing, but we never really think about the part of the family that became European. So so you got to picture this. Ivank, it's like an L, This is the bottom of the L, and then there's the top of the L. So we drove in like this. This is like a city block. And then up there, this part of it's like 5 city blocks, right? So we drove in and we parked the car here. And we couldn't figure out where we were, what was going on. It was one of the first things I remember noticing was the pomegranate trees. It's kind of neat. It was kind of exotic. It had been raining the whole time we drove down from Budapest. And it was just so wet, drippy. And so he and I were down on this bottom part where there's these big iron, a big iron fence, with big iron stakes to make the fence. And he and I were looking around like a couple of tourists. It's real quiet. And I'm looking at the trees, and Connor's looking around. We're trying to figure out where's everything at. And I'm looking at the trees, and there's this guy looking right back at me and Connor. I mean, he's like right there. Scared the hell out of me. It's like, what? There's this guy. He's right there. I'm like this far away. He's got heavy eyebrows like me. And there's rain dropping off his eyebrows. He's wearing an old army jacket. He's kind of down on his knee. And he's staring at Connor and I. And it scared me so bad. I didn't want to go in there any farther. It was like really weird. It was like a wood nymph, looking at me. It was a real person. So I thought, well, I'm not going in there. So we walk along here where we have the car parked. Then we walk up the street to the very end. And up at the very end, which would be pointed toward Austria, we walk up and we're looking at all the houses, and I think there was a post office there, a little store. And we get up to the very end, and there's a church. I don't remember what the name of the church is right off, but the thing that struck me about that church was it seemed like a identical church to St. Francis Church in Hamilton, in the Bitterroot. I don't know if you're familiar, but Mrs. Daly, after her husband died, Marcus was he was a Catholic guy from Ireland, but probably not real active, I'd say. He lived his belief rather than, wore it on his sleeve. I like that kind of people. But anyhow, he when he died, we'd always thought in the Bitterroot that she'd built the Catholic Church there, St. Francis, in his memory. Well, the thing is about Mrs. Daly is her family were always big time Episcopalians. They, in Butte, the Episcopal community was small, but it pretty much ran the show. All the Catholics over at St. Pat's, there was lots of them, but they were the guys, they were the people digging the holes in the ground. So what she had done is she had built the Episcopal Church, St. Paul's, and then it was generally understood that she'd built the Catholic Church, and then she had built the Marcus Daly Memorial Hospital. Well, Marcus Daly Memorial Hospital, I got into the family papers of Mrs. Daly's family papers, and all the details of how the hospital was built. It's something that she obviously put a lot of thought and a lot of care into to make it first class. And that hospital, Marcus Daly Hospital, is the memorial to her husband, Marcus Daly. So where does the Catholic Church fit in here? Was she just waving it in the direction of her Catholic husband? Well, Roman Catholic husband. Well, once I saw that church in Ivank, I'm going, well, now wait a minute. Maybe what's happened here is Tony and Hattie, married a Catholic guy, and Tony and Hattie They must have put that church up over in Ivank. It looks a lot like St. Francis, really, without the basement. And then somehow it got replicated for Hamilton. And then I got thinking about it subsequently, and I remember that Hamilton was where all the logging, a lot of the logging for the mines in Butte took place. The sawmill that was down at the end of Main Street, where they bring the logs down from the Upper Bitterroot, they'd have them all out there in a big flotilla, and then they'd run them through the sawmill. Well, the head of that crew, I can't remember his name, but that's where the first Catholic congregation gathered, was in his home there on 3rd Street by the new courthouse. So what I'm thinking happened is, out of courtesy for the working people that work for them, or their crew boss, that Mrs. Daly had that church that was already in Ivank built for the people in Hamilton. It's something I would never have thought of before, but I think that's what happened. Earlier, there had been a Jesuit mission, and then I'm not sure how they pulled that all together, but I'm sure her financial influence had a lot to do with it, and having a piece of property and that sort of thing. But for a long time, the Catholic community in Hamilton met in the head logger's home there on 3rd Street. So that was kind of neat for me to see that. I was just like, why didn't I think of this before? There's a lot more going on there than I would have expected. And then when you go in the church, there's a statue of Tony Segre, and I think a statue of Harriet. And there are some of the things that they did for the community. I think the community really liked them. James Gerard, Hattie's brother-in-law, talked about how the people used to kiss Tony's hand. Well, that was kind of a custom, but I think they really cared for the Segres. I think they were really good landlords. And as you walk down that L, you walk down this side, there's a park there. And you go through this park, it's real nice, flowers and everything. And there's a bust of Anton Segre. I couldn't read what it said on the bust, but later on, when I got my translator app for my iPhone, and I was reading about what had happened with him after he was put into Mauthausen years later. Apparently, the people in Hungary decided to make that park for him because he was so well thought of. So that was our first exposure to Ivank. Well, that was where the adventure started. So I had been talking about how I really wanted to go see their house, their house in Ivank, because the Daly house in Hamilton is huge. It's like Mrs. Daly. I'm going to talk to you more about her. She's like a very important person in Montana history. But Mrs. Daly, after her husband died in 1900, she went and she built that mansion at Riverside. She rebuilt it, made it bigger, made it very nice, kind of a Georgian design. And I mean, that's not a small construction project. Well, I wanted to see her daughter Hattie's mansion in Ivank. So we walked back down the L. We get down to where the car is, and we'd done everything. And I was thinking, well, we probably should leave. Besides, that guy that I'd seen looking through the fence scared the hell out of me. He really did. It's like, whoa, this is like Transylvania stuff. I mean, it was scary as hell. So I go, it makes me hurts to laugh. But anyhow, so we get in the car. Of course, Connor's driving. He's driven us all over Bavaria and Italy and Hungary. We had a great time. But anyhow, we get in the car and I said to him, well, let's go, Connor. It's time to head out. We're only 7 miles from the border. And he goes, Gramps, you'll never forgive yourself. You'll never forgive yourself if you don't go in there and try to see what that house is like. I looked at him. I says, oh, you're right. Let's go. And he goes, I'm not going in there. It's too scary. That was classic. That was so classic. I can't believe it. That's where I got the full That's when I got the full nature of my grandson. But he wasn't going in there. So I get out of the car and he's waiting there for me. So I go in and I go through those front gates and it's about, I don't know, 200 yards to the front of this big, huge house. It's huge and it's yellow. And it's so big that when I took a picture of it, you'll see in the photo with this podcast, I had to take the picture in a curve because I couldn't fit the whole thing in the picture. But anyhow, so I started looking around, snooping around. I didn't see that guy. He probably was in there watching me, but I didn't see him. So I go in there and I finally make my way up to this kind of oval in the front of the place. I think it was owned by then by the Hungarian government or one level of government or another. Don't know what for exactly, but I go up and I look and I go to the really kind of a small front door compared to the big front doors in the mansion in Hamilton up on the portico. But I walk up and I'm right on the ground floor and there's a Xerox sign on the door, Scotch tape to the door in Hungarian, which I do not speak. Talk about a foreign language, holy cow. But anyhow, I looked at it and I thought, well, if I'm going in here, there's only one way to do it. I'll just walk in. So I opened the door and I walked in. And I go in there and huge building. It's a mansion. It's a big thing. And I look over to my right. There's I don't know, 5 or 6 people. And they're busy talking to each other about something. Quite a ways over, quite a ways. And so I don't pay any attention to them. And I go in farther and there's what clearly to me had used to be the dining room. And I walked into the dining room and there's still a table in there and it's a huge, huge dining room. And how they did that old plaster of Paris, they make ropes and stuff. That's all still there and it's all painted over. All the glitz is gone, but you could see how it was. And then I looked around, I was nosy. And so I thought, well, I better ask somebody if I could be in here. So I walked out of there and what used to maybe be the kitchen, I walked over there and I could see a nurse. So I walked up to her and I introduced myself as courteously as I know how to do. Oh, God. And she looks at me like I had a hole in my head. And I couldn't communicate with her one bit and she couldn't communicate with me. So I was ready to give up, call her a day. And another nurse came into the back of that room, a younger nurse, and she could speak a little bit of English, enough to, say her name and my name and be nice to each other. So I told her, my name's John Driscoll. I'm from a town out in Montana in the United States. And from where the people that used to own this house, the lady, Mrs. Harriet Daly, she was from there. And I just want to be able to look around the building and see it, take some pictures, and take them home to the people at the mansion in Hamilton and show them what it looked like. And I promised, because my dad worked with, I could tell already that some of the people living in the house they were older, not all older, but some were older. But I would characterize it as people who needed housing, who probably were developmentally disabled when they were being raised. Not all of them, but anyhow. But I knew enough that I didn't want to take pictures of people. It's their privacy thing. So I said, I won't take any pictures of any of the people that live here, but I just want to take pictures of the building. And she was nodding, and I thought we were getting along really good. So then I said, thank you. And she said, thank you. And I decided to go back toward the front door. And then there's this huge sweeping staircase like in Gone with the Wind, right? So I start up that Gone with the Wind staircase. And I get up there. So I get up to the second floor. I'm looking around. I thought, well, let's go for broke. And I go clear up to the top floor where from the outside, there's little garrets. I don't know if that's the third or the fourth floor. I suspect it's the third floor. I get up there, and I can hear a sound from up there, and I get up to the head of the stairs, and I can look this way, and I see about 6 guys, and they're all bent over a television station, this television, looking at a TV program, and they're all totally occupied, right? So I thought I'll just walk over there and see what they're doing. So I walked down this dark kind of hallway of, garroted windows to get to these guys that are looking at the TV. And I'm almost on their, up on their shoulder. And the door behind me, right here, opens up unexpectedly. I think it was probably a bathroom. And this humongous friggin' guy comes out of there. Jeez. Now that guy scared the hell out of me. You talk about a Frankenstein character. That was the guy. He didn't have pegs or anything in his mouth. But he was one scary looking dude. And then he says something to me in Hungarian. That just added to the effect, right? I thought. And it wasn't very nice. Like, what the hell are you doing here? Well, I had to think quick. So what I did, there's a sign, and I thought it must say exit. And I opened that door, and it was like looking down a culvert, right? You just look down that thing a couple of stories, and you go down these stairs real tight on the inside of a culvert. I went down them as fast as I'm sure anybody in human history has ever gone down those stairs. And I think the guy was too big to follow me down. Good thing. So I get down to the bottom 2 or 3 floors, and I come out and I start acting natural. So I get out on the first floor, and made a big decision there. I thought, it's time for me to take my leave. So I just walk quietly over to the front door. I go out and I leave the house. So then it's real quiet outside. So I wanted to get pictures of the backside. So I walked around the back, take some nice pictures of this huge building. It has a portico on the backside like the mansion in Hamilton does. A portico meaning a big porch where you could have lunches and picnics and stuff. It's really, really nice. But anyhow, I walk all the way around, and by the time I'm clearing the back, I hear this sound of this car. And it's just coming like a bat out of hell. It's like, it's way down, if I'm here by this house, this car is up here, and it's coming down that long road, and it's going to come in here, and then it's going to come into the driveway. And he's coming down that long road from where the church about is. I could hear him clear down there. He had a really wound up, all the RPMs. And he was moving fast. And I kind of pictured, Jacques Clouseau, the Pink Panther, coming after me. So he comes down, he hits that corner, takes a turn, throws gravel, onto the corner, and then comes in the front gate, and I can hear him where he's at. And so I quickly, just like in the Pink Panther, I go around this side of the mansion, and he's still out where Connor is. He's going by Connor, and I get out into the trees, right, in the front. And so I go from one tree to the next, and just like in the cartoons, I disappeared behind the trees. So he's tearing in here to go to that front door, and I'm going from one tree to the next. And just about the time he's going in the front door, I'm going out the front gate. So Connor's waiting here for me. He knows something's up because that car came by just tearing up that street. So I hop in the car and I said, "Hit it," like that. And we did that, and then off we went to Austria. And when I saw Connor yesterday, after 6 years, I forgot all about that. That was a lot of fun. I got some great pictures. Maybe I'll get a chance to show them someday. Thanks.